words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our redeemer, and it is in his name, which is his authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect tonight's message. Aman. Welcome to everybody. Hello. Thank you for joining us one more again. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste, osayo, I see you. Osayo, kamsamida, akwaba, etasen, habari, jambo, mimi ni Kofi, ninafuraha kukutana na wewe. Shabbat shalom, teda yashrel, kwam yashrel, barak Allah cham yachava, anai Kofi, mashalom che. I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And we're thankful and grateful to be with you all again today. We appreciate you. We honor you. We thank you for spending some time with us again. We're excited as we continue to spread out some and have more and more people who are coming into the fold and coming back to who they are. We're excited about it. And we're thankful and grateful to have you on with us tonight. Once again, we give all praise and honor to Yahweh Elohim. We give all praise and honor to the Yahweh Achet Amma, or the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. You can check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree, for those who need that extra info on there. She has many different tinctures and natural medicines that are there for healing. And her business is to make sure that she takes care of the diaspora and make sure that health of diaspora has become her business and her calling. So we're thankful and grateful for those who would be able to support that. And to Lottie Dottie and everybody, to SOC, to the ministerial staff, to the moderators, to those of you, if it's your first time with us, if it's one time of many. If you're on YouTube, by the way, take time out, if you don't mind, hit that notification tab so that you know when the next video is coming out. And also feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And we thank you for doing that in advance. Those who will share, getting gifts, comments, questions, your viewership, obviously, anything that you can do, we appreciate you so very much, and we thank you. Oh, okay, I tried to speak your Swahili language. Okay, well, thank you for telling me that I didn't do a great work, but we appreciate you. I'm pretty sure that it's spoken many different ways, but, I thank you for being on today, and we appreciate you. So we're thankful. We appreciate you. We're grateful for you guys being on with us tonight. And we just asked, even if you agree, disagree, whatever the case might be, we're thankful and grateful to have you on with us. And that was my wife, the Honorable Maya. Once again, check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A-N-D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. And we thank you guys so much for the support of what we're doing in diaspora. Tonight, we want to talk about the slavery argument. And before we get into that any deeper, let's go ahead and say hello to everybody. How you doing, Lynette? How you doing, Minister Shantae? How are we doing over here? Give me a second. I'm sorry. How are we doing, Sister Rhonda, Brother Vincent, Taryn, or Taryn, excuse me, Taryn, Big Brother Thomas, Cole, shalom to everybody. Peace. How you doing, Minister Joseph, Sister Irena, Nay, Monica, Minister Sonia, Sister Cynthia. How you doing? Is it Subjuhana 40? Thank you for being on with us. Samaya, how are we doing? Thank you, Keith, for being on with us. And everybody, if I missed your name or if I missed you, charged to my head and not to my heart, we appreciate everybody who's on with us today. So, the slavery argument. And how you doing, Daoud Boone? The slavery argument. This whole thing of, did slavery happen? Were there a million people that were taken from Africa? Were there only 10,000? Was there barely anybody? Is it a myth? All these different things that come up. How you doing, Elroy? Thanks for being on. All these different things that come up to where we argue, and another thing that to take us away from tangible evidence. How you doing, Spike Me, and everybody who's coming on. So this is what I'd like to do with the slavery argument, because we could argue and argue and argue till the cows come home. And look, we could have a whole session if we wanted to just try and talk about facts, figures, whose facts are correct, where should we go historically, look up the value of these things, and that might pop up tonight some. But I wanted to kind of use this to make the main thing, because a lot of times we get so into fighting each other, like colorism and all the Willerland stuff, ageism, colorism, sexism, colloquialisms, uh, you know, wordism, schisms, all these isms, racism, reverse racism, colonialism, all these different things that are there that are designed to be able to keep us from coming together and having actual conversation about what's real. How you doing, brother Nye? And how you doing, Sister Miko? We have all these things that are there to keep us separated. And how you doing, Soraya? And if we're not careful, it's really easy for us to remain separated. Remember, even this rising, when we are talking about in our code, the code breaker series, and we're talking about the pimp code, where pimps do things to make sure that the wifeys, if you will, make sure that they stay disconnected. So instead of doing those things and staying disconnected and having all these weird issues that are going on, things of that nature, um, let's start from a place that's foundational as far as our sovereignty, but also our being a nation. And how you doing, Miss Pierce? Let's go to this place of being a nation. Um, Nation building, extremely important, extremely vital in what it is that we do. Let's go to this place of being a nation. And we don't really think about that a lot, but let's gentrify our thought process, our wording, our family. We like to talk about gentrification only the negative, but it can become positive when we decide to gentrify things according to our standard. How you doing, Minister Tamara? So before we argue the numbers and who came from where, because a lot of times this argument is only really for people trying to make things about themselves and their little part of the diaspora, so where we form further schism, or where we form further schisms and things of that nature. Before we go into that place, and I'm doing well, Elroy. I'm sorry. Thank you for being on. Um, let's go to a place of what really matters, that people were stolen, lives were stolen, cultures were stolen. Yeah, we need to stop separating and unite, right? And how you doing, Sister Monica? So let's just talk about that. Let's start in that place. People were stolen. Before we argue how, when, this, that, whatever, people were stolen. How you doing, Sister Austria? Right? And Shabbat Shalom to everybody who's coming on. People were taken from their culture. Whether you want to talk about people were stolen from Canada, from what you call the United States of America, what we call the Republic of Mexico, right? If you want to talk about Guatemala, wherever you want to go, if you want to talk about Haiti, Cuba, the Bahamas, whatever people have been told that they have to call themselves now by other people putting them there, whether you want to talk about Ghana, Sierra Leone, uh, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Kemet or Egypt, Morocco, Central Africa, right? South Africa, um, where people are speaking Shwe, Ashanti Shwe. We want to talk about Timbuktu, Ghana, the ancient Ghana. People were stolen, right? And I think that's the part that we don't really get. And how you doing, Sister Drea? We missed that part. Like, people were stolen. People say, well, no, we get that. No, I don't think we really recognize that we need to start with people were stolen. Like, we can try to argue this and be like, oh, who is more important, and this is the numbers we go by. But people were stolen, and we keep looking to the people who stole people and stole culture to be able to verify where we are. So before we go into this place of arguing with other people are telling us about ourselves, maybe we should start at a place where we were stolen. Now somebody says, oh, well, we weren't stolen and we didn't come from Africa and that not been people. And we go into this place of forgetting that, hey, peoples went from the West Indies to the America to United States of America. People came from Canada to America. People came from England to America. Matter of fact, natives, that's what happened with Squanto. Squanto, the person that people know about from Thanksgiving, he was already a slave. That's how he could speak English. He also could speak Spanish as well. He was a slave in Europe and then was able to make his way back and was able to talk to those people who came over from Europe. It was not a miracle that he could speak English, right? People were already being stolen. And this is what we need to take into account. If I were like, and just roll with me for a second, if I were to have a tree in Africa, like, let's just make this plain and simple, no matter how many people you think were taken, a seed was taken. I want you to just roll with the mindset, right? A seed was taken. How you doing, Sister Shima? Right? A seed was taken. So the seed was taken. The seed was taken where? Seed was taken, let's just say from Africa, right? Because I don't have to take the whole tree. All I need to do is take the fruit or take the seed. If I take a seed from a tree in Africa, remember it's not where you're from even, but it's who you're from. The tree I took you from. If I take a tree from Africa, or not a tree, but I go into the tree, I take the fruit. I eat of the fruit, and then I take the seed so that I can create the tree somewhere else. And I take it all the way to the United States of America. If I plant that seed in American soil, question for you: is it an American tree or is it still an African tree? I want us to get the context, right? If I take a seed from an African tree and I eat the fruit and I take the seed, and I plant it over in the soil in the United States of America, if the seed grows into the same kind of tree that it was in Africa, is it an American seed or is it an African seed? It's still African, right? Okay. All right. So we're on the same track. How you doing, Minister Morel? So we're on the same track. It's still an African seed. So if somebody only took one seed, but they grew 10,000 trees from that seed, right? How many trees or how many seeds or how many trees were stolen from Africa? See, we're arguing over the number, but I think we got to get to the main thing first. First things first. If I took an African seed from an African tree and planted it in American soil, it is still an African tree, which means that one seed is all it takes to be able to steal 10,000 African trees. You see that? So I don't even think we get the context right. Whether you believe it was 10,000 slaves that were taken, or whether you believe it was 100 million slaves that were taken, if I can grow 10,000 trees out of one seed, which by the way means there have to be a bunch of other seeds that may not make it, but the 10,000 trees that make it, they become trees to give other seed and more seed and more seed and to grow. Then by stealing one seed, I could make thousands upon thousands of trees. Which means if I steal one person, right? Or two, right? Because we have to two become one. But right. But if I take, you know, a seed, if I take a person, if I take two people, let's say I have a ship with 50 slaves on it, and I take 50 slaves and I bring them from Africa over to the United States of America, and they give birth to many more children. I have stolen a bunch of trees. They are still African trees. They are still Negro trees. They are still Israelite trees. They are still Sephardic Jew trees, if you will. They are still all these terms that we give. So that's the problem that we have, is that we are not looking. We always talk about where something is because you were tricked into that by, the United States Corporation when they started having you do these birth certificates and everything, and they wanted to know where you were from and said if you were born somewhere. They just started doing that once freedmen started doing what they were supposed to do. They made you lowercase c citizens with the 14th Amendment, and that's the first time that you started thinking about yourselves. You said, what about the 20 million that were already here? Sure. That's why we started off at first. I'm using a context now to be talking about it, but we started off at first going along that process that no matter where you want to talk about where they came from, they stole you, they stole your culture, they took your land, and they even took your identity. Even if you look at the word Negro, the way they use it in America, Negro could mean native here. It could mean indigenous to Africa. It could mean somebody that came from the West Indies. It could mean somebody that came from Brazil. It could be somebody who came from Spain and from Portugal. Wherever they brought you from, you came here. They put you as a Negro, right? They took the seed. They took your culture to a point to where we don't even think of that as a determining factor. So we're already here. But in this context, I'm trying to get people to comprehend. So if in your mind, if you want, instead of I say Africa, you want to say you came from Tisalagi, right? You want to say you came from Cherokee. You say you want to come from Taino. You want to say you come from Omekshi. You want to say you come from Khalifa. You want to say you come from Wampanoag. You want to say you come from Sioux, from Lakota, from Dakota, from Blackfoot, from Creek. The list goes on and on. If you want to put it in place of that, right? But I'm just trying to get you to see the context. Yeah, we're literally saying the same thing. I don't know what the fight is about. I myself is what you would call Cherokee. Matter of fact, this is the original name of what we called ourselves, right? Let me just show you that I'm in tune with who I am, right? I don't comprehend the fight, but let's just get this out the way, and let's get back into what we're trying to talk about, because I'm literally saying I'm literally agreeing with you. But let's just go ahead and do this all the way, right? This is the original term for some of my people, right? I mix with a couple of different things, but like many are. But on my native side, the original name for what you call Cherokee would be Anakitua Ya. Anakitua Ya. That was our original name. So yes, we were already originally here, writing in a particular language, having our own culture and things of that nature for sure. I have no problem with that, right? So we had no problem with that, right? We talk about that all the time here. We comprehend that. So I'm trying to get people to see context though. So if you need to put on the Kitawaya people there, right? Then you can go ahead and do that. That actually stands for, believe it or not, the people of Yah, and the original name of our cousins, who people call uh, what do we call them now? The Choctaw tribe. Um, if you were to look at their original name actually means the people of the skirts, believe it or not. So we already know about this. We were already traveling to different places. People were already mixing. So it's not even a thing of like, were we here? Did we even know about each other? It was known, right? It was actually known by the people who came here, because the people who came here were developing slave colonies. Remember, once again, we started off by telling you that Squanto spoke English, not because it was some miracle of Christian value and stuff, and some Christian God came and allowed Squanto to be able to help them for Thanksgiving and all that nonsense they teach in school. He was a slave in England and in Spain. So that's why he could speak English when English settlers came over, right? You see, so I comprehend where I'm from. I'm more than aware of it. Wore skirts with fringes, still do, by the way, you know, and things like that. Every once in a while I'll have a feather in my head. It's every once in a while. I'm not really qualified to have certain feathers in my head yet, but yeah, so I get it, right? So we're going to talk about this, and we realize this once again, the slavery argument. I want us to recognize that before we start getting to where they're from, who they're from, all that stuff, before it becomes something that we can't even have discussion about, I want us to think about this premise, about this mindset that says what? That if I take a tree from somewhere and I take this, or I'm sorry, if I have a tree and I go and I eat the fruit, I like the fruit, I want to grow it somewhere else, and I take the seed and I plant it in another soil. So, for example, once again, put whatever tribe you want there. But if I have an African tree and I take African seed from the African tree, right? And I go ahead and I take that African seed and I plant it in American soil, or what they call American soil. It is still an African tree. And so if that seed gives birth to 10,000 trees in America, it still would be considered to be 10,000 African trees. Don't get it twisted by the straw man argument or the things that we've signed. How you doing, Zora? Thanks for being on. Don't get it twisted. Don't get messed up by those things, right? And still, y'all sell either way, right? I get you, right? So literally, if we were to take that and bring it to where we're supposed to be, I would still be, I would still be what? I would still be an African tree. If you want to say, fine, make me an Israelite, I would still be an Israelite tree. If you make me a Moor, I'd still be a Moorish tree. If you want to make me a Blackfoot, I would still be a Blackfoot tree. You want to make me Olmec She, I would still be Olmec She. If you want to use this weird term they started trying to put everybody as an Arawak, I would still be an Arawak tree. No matter where you place me, I'm still from where I come from. It's still in my DNA. And I still probably don't even grow as well as what I would in my natural environment. And how you doing, babe? My wife is on the Honorable Maya. Once again, check her out on TikTok, YouTube, her website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She is a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. Yeah, someone with a wall of questions, yeah, and all that stuff. Yeah, right. So if we listen long enough, we'll be able to see that. How you doing, her? Thanks for being on. So we have to realize, right? And it wasn't a person. I mean, it wasn't a tree, but it was people. And that's the goal that we want you to see, is that they took a bunch of people from their culture. They took a bunch of people from you thinking that you should identify with who you come from, right? You don't identify with where you come from. You identify, or who you come from. You identify with where you were born. Like, we don't even care where we came from. That's the problem. In all this argument, has anybody started saying, where did we come from? Who did we come from? Who are we connected to? How you doing? Yehuda ben Yisrael. right? Where did we come from, or who did we come from? That's why you sign your birth certificate and your passports and stuff the way that you do, not realizing that when you sign your passport, you should make sure you're a non-citizen national, and make sure that you tell them when you sign it that you are not from a citizen of the United States, but you signed it, and you even say you've married into a citizen of the United States. You give up your actual culture even when you sign documentation. People are unaware, and we've been taught to remain unaware. So if I take a tree from somewhere, now here's the deal. They took the tree that was there, they took the apple or whatever fruit you'd like. They took the fruit, they liked the fruit, they decided they wanted to grow it. They took the seed, they took it somewhere else, they planted it somewhere else, told you that it was more important that now that tree should get its identification from where it's been planted rather than where it originated, where it should be rooted in, where its original soil and environment is, right? And now that they've done that, you're arguing about where you come from. This is Willie Lynch one-on-one. That's why you should study it, even when people are trying now to tell you not to look at it. This is Willie Lynch 101. Right? This is Willie Lynch 101. To literally have people who are arguing over the plantation they come from. It's in there. This is Willie Lynch 101. Did you know that? Argue the plantation, where it is, how big it is, all these different things. Rather than who did you come from? See, we'll tell people in a heartbeat, Brooklyn, Bronx, Staten Island, Manhattan, right? Give them all the boroughs that you from. Tell them that New York, we all in this together. New York City, and into a sense, New York State, yeah, we all in this together. But then somebody says, well, what's the name of your great-great-grandfather? And you don't know. That's the trick of the enemy. You know, what they say all the time, the greatest trick of the devil was to get people to believe he never existed. One of the greatest trick of the devil is to get you to think that it doesn't matter that who existed before you. Shabbat shalom, Sister Deborah, and to everybody who's coming on. Peace be upon everybody. Right? That's one of the biggest tricks that's ever been pulled, is that we find more solace in identifying with the place that you've been planted rather than identifying with where you or who you came from. And see what they did that was even more, and we don't even think about it. What they did was not only did they take you from the tree, eat your fruit, say that we like it, plant it somewhere else so that they could eat more of your fruit and get you to say that that's what you're designed to do, is give somebody else your fruit rather than try to make sure your own environment has your fruit. But then on top of that, then they cut down the tree originally where it came from and told you that you never came from there. But see, I love the Most High because what he's done is he's left us clues. For tonight, we might call them stumps since we're talking about trees. They cut down the tree, but they left the stump. The stump is evidence that the tree was there. Mm. So they might be trying to get us to believe that it doesn't matter that the tree is outside of its environment and that it's giving fruit and stuff and seed into other environments. They might be trying to tell us that, but see, when they cut down the tree from where we came from, when we go back, we see the stump, we see the evidence. And the stump still has what? The stump still has what? Somebody help me. What does the stump still have that's in the ground? It might not have the rest of the tree sticking up right now, but the stump that's there, even if they treated it to where it can't grow, they can't. If they left the stump, see, if they were smart, they would have got rid of the stumps. They didn't get rid of the stumps. And if they left the stump, what's going to happen? You said, where can you find Willie Lynch Red Lab? If you look up Willie Lynch PDF, you find it. You find it like that. Matter of fact, I'll see if I can find the one that we read from when we go through it. And then you can go ahead and I'll try and see if I can put it in the chat on YouTube. But it should be, if you type in Willie Lynch letter PDF, you probably be able to find it. I think it's the second one down, called no, first one that pops up. First one that pops up, the making of a slave. I'll go ahead and put it in the chat and YouTube, so you can go ahead and hopefully just be able to. I don't know what's going on. Hold on. Okay, here we go. So you can go ahead and go through it. I just put it in the chat over there. So you should be able to click on it right now, copy and paste, do all that stuff. Amazon has copies as well. Thank you, Minister Shante. Right, so a stump still has roots. right? A stump still has roots. So they cut the tree down, but they left the stump. And when you look at the stump, you'll still find your roots. It's my pleasure, right? And how you doing, Tribe of Judah? See, a stump still has roots. It's still rooted and grounded, even if the tree is missing. And the roots are what you need to see because the roots grew to make sure it could take on the size of the tree. So if we look at this at how the roots work, we can actually see the tree size. Mm. But see, we're arguing about where came from how many this and that, right? You know, but the stumps have roots. How you doing, Jay Billa? I'm not sure about the. I think I've seen some of the pictures you're talking about as far as the mountain question, but I don't know if I'm in a position to really talk about it yet. I'm still a babe in that, if I be honest, on some of those things that are starting to come out. I'm learning about them, but I'm not. I'm not. I don't think I'm qualified enough to really have a conversation about it yet. Um, but see, the stumps still have the roots, so we can check out the roots that are connected to the stump to see how big was the tree. We can see what kind of nutrients did the tree take in because there's still going to be remnants of nutrients. We can see how it actually drank the water up from the soil. See, the culture is in the roots, even if you can't see the tree, even if you can't see the leaves. And when we discover the roots and we could compare those roots to the roots that are growing over here, we find out it's the same roots. Then you can't tell me that it's not the same tree. So now we got to start asking ourselves the question, why is it that they cut the tree down? Why would you cut the tree down and say that it doesn't matter where its origin was, but it matters where it's been placed now? And when we say, well, we found the stumps and evidence that we have roots over there, and that's our original roots, and you've rooted us in something that doesn't belong to us. No wonder the trees aren't as viable, and they don't seem to root as much, and they don't seem to get as big. And the trees, therefore, probably are not as big and as confident, as consistent, as competent as what they once was. Somebody says, "Why are you bringing up old stuff? That's the past." But see, it's not the past because if the tree is still growing, the tree is still alive, but the tree has a natural inclination to try to get back to its roots, to get back to its culture. See, so when you realize that and you recognize that all I have to do in order to basically steal a community is I don't have to steal 5,000 people. Just give me enough to where I can have some seed to plant somewhere else. Still giving out oxygen, things of that for sure, right? Right. And of course the stump can grow back up. But what I'm saying is that we have to ask ourselves if we were rooted somewhere else, why should we not look for the original place we were rooted? They do that all the time. Like that's how you know people of Kemet were traveling all over the world because you have Kemetic mummies that have cocaine inside them. Cocaine doesn't grow in Africa. Its origins are not in Africa. So when we see where the origins of cocaine are from, and we see that there's some mummies that have cocaine in them, we have to ask ourselves, well, then you can't tell us our root is not in travel. Just because you cut it down and you cut some noses off doesn't mean that we can't recognize that we were already seafaring people. Pyramids are all over the Americas. There's more pyramids in Georgia and Mississippi than there are anywhere else on the planet. But for some reason, we think that pyramids being in Cherokee land should be something that confuses us. Well, I guess you say technically Mississippian land, those would have been the tribes that would have been there, but we would have known of them. But somebody cut you off, left a stump though. We can find evidence. Go to Cuba in the water, in the ocean, in Cuba, 3 pyramids down at the bottom of the water. Look like they got there after an earthquake. Go over to Indiana. I mean, sorry, Illinois. I keep saying Indiana. Indiana has some too, but Illinois. And Illinois, one of the most ancient pyramids, still right there. Hmm. But it's covered in grass. Why? Because people who came there and gentrified, they didn't look at that as something that's part of their culture, right? And they didn't want you to know your culture. They cut it off. So you might have you might have seen it depending on what route you've taken in there. You might have seen it before and never once thought maybe I should look at that because you didn't even think that that could possibly be a pyramid. Tennessee as well, Georgia as well, all right, Alabama as well. I think Florida. I could be off on that, depending on if I'm getting my borders mixed up in the Pensacola area. But see, we don't think about this stuff. So you've been cut off. So in your mind, you say that because I can't find. Now, here's something that's interesting. Have you? So if they cut you off of all those things, why are we going to look for the person or the people who have made us captives and have captivated us? Why would we look for them to tell us our story? If they've cut it off and we're finding tree stumps, we need to realize how to study roots for ourselves. You know, great tea comes from great roots. You heal yourself from great roots. You have great roots to be able to heal yourself. Yeah, popping up everywhere. Yeah, some scientists are trying to say that as far as Kemet, but that's because of, the whole movement that happened with Mormons and certain white folk that decided naming everything there and saying that they were the chosen people and they were therefore the real Kemetic people. They were the Israelite people. They started doing that in the Americas. We think that's only something that happened in Europe. That's something that made its way over to America too. Remember, they weren't even Americans. Remember the original definition. There's two definitions of an American by law. The original definition of American is what? A copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas, which means that all somebody had to do was go on a boat in Boston, throw some tea overboard, put on the stuff that they had used to scalp the other people. They had taken their headbands and they had taken their what they worn, and they were using them. They were putting them up in their homes as if it was a bear skin or something like that. And then when they wanted to say we're the Americans, all they did was put on some blackface, throw some tea overboard, said we don't want to pay taxes because to pay taxes mean we have to be in debt, and to be in debt makes us a slave. And since we made slave as these people, we're not going to become like they were, but we will become them, and we'll tell them they have no story. So you hear California, you don't even think. So you think California is a Mexican, something stolen from Mexican people. You don't realize that California is named after Queen Khalifa or Chieftain Khalifa, who was such a great chieftain that they actually deified her. And so they worshiped her as, what we would now claim we would call, they wouldn't call it in their language that, but, we would call a god or a spirit of some type, and made her into a spirit to be able to be worshiped. These were a dark-skinned people, but they cut you off. See, so if those people wouldn't tell you the truth, why do you think they would tell you the truth about the population of slaves and where they came from? Whether they came from here, or whether they came from Africa, or whether they came from South America, or whether they came from England, or whether they came from Spain. Why would they tell you the truth about yourself? They've cut you off. So you got to start looking at the stumps. What's the unknown knowns, or what's the known unknowns? Right? Remember that whole thing, the evidence of absence is not the absence of evidence. They left stumps for you. You got to start looking at the roots. So we're not allowed to search for our roots because it will unearth a lot of hidden factors. And they're finding no taxation without representation, right? But then they tax everybody, right? Just like they said in the Declaration of Independence that they wanted to fight because they felt like they were being brought into slavery while owning slaves. So you have to look at the double-mindedness of these people. So you believe that, but by the way, when they talk about these populations in America, real talk, when you hear these people arguing about slavery, oh, we looked up what America said, and only this many people were living there. Do you not know that in the United States of America, that people of color were not considered to be people? So how are you going to tell me about a population when you don't even count them as people? And slaves were considered to be property, and you didn't have to report. A lot of people, because the three-fifths compromise wasn't that you were three-fifths of a human being. The three-fifths compromise was something that was put there to make sure that the South would pay three-fifths taxes on them, and the North would pay two-fifths taxes because the South had more land, therefore had more slaves. The North had less land, therefore less slaves, and so they wanted to pay less taxes. And so they basically added the slaves on property. The North was trying to get the South to pay for all the slaves, but the North didn't want to, or so the South didn't want to admit how many slaves they actually had. So they were just like, look, it doesn't matter. This is just property. But they said, well, you got to report your property. So they started to report some of their property. So we don't even know how many people were slaves in America. That's the truth. But see, that's in the stump. It's cut off. You're having an argument about something through a Eurocentric lens, not even realizing that it's not your people reporting on your people. It's the people who said that they weren't even people reporting on them. How you doing, Coco? And exactly, my people perish for lack of knowledge. And here's what's starting to happen because we're trying to look for where the tree's planted rather than where the tree comes from for the story. This is what happens. My people will perish for lack of knowledge. And it is not because the knowledge has been presented, it is or has not been presented, it is because we have rejected the knowledge. And so the Most High says, since you reject the knowledge, which means intimacy, right? A place where we can conceive. To know somebody is to marry somebody. To marry somebody is to have sex. And since you will reject the spiritual knowledge that you should be able to have, the spiritual intimacy you should have with them, he says, I will reject you even to the generations to come after you. How you doing, Freedom Fire? See, it's a consistency thing, and we don't have the context. We have the argument without the context. We have the argument without the context. So now people will say stuff like, "Well, if there were really all these slave ships, show me where the slave ships were." Well, number one, a bunch of slave ships were pulled apart, just like a lot of people pull apart a lot of things that were built in Kemet because the people that are there, they didn't care about it. They just wanted to live. Or just like there were many Roman aqueducts and stuff like that that they got from other people that came before them, and those things were pulled apart because people were poor, people need to be able to build or live or do something. So they take the stuff that they weren't using anymore. And now Rome starts to crumble. They go into what they call the Dark Ages. If you don't believe so, see, this is when travel comes into place. This is when study comes into place. This is when culture comes into place. I can tell you for a fact, I can give it to you real easy. In Baltimore, went to a museum. We happened to want to go there just because, it was a place that was supposed to have a lot of our story there, right? Not his story, but our story. So we decided to go. We go into this building, we're talking to the guy, almost nobody's inside. It's kind of like a place, it's like it's right, like people travel past it all the time, walk past it all the time, probably don't even know what it is. We find the place, nobody's in there. Maybe like 3 4 other people are in this entire museum, and it's 2 buildings next to each other. They're made out of wood, and the staircases that you go up are also made out of wood. You do some research. I know this because we asked the people there, and then we went and studied, and we went to Annapolis to find out for ourselves. Apparently, when we were in the building, we were in a building that was made out of a slave ship. Matter of fact, when you do some research, it's made out of the slave ship of Kunta Kinte, the ship that he and his people came on. It was actually very interesting, even in the spiritual vibe, because we go into it's 2 buildings. So you got the museum side, and you got this church that a lot of meetings used to go over. People who were spoke here, like Sojourner Truth and Frederick Douglass, in this place, and I believe Thurgood Marshall. I'm not sure if Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. did or not. And we go over to the church side, and we're walking around. And my son, who's probably 2 3 years old at this time, he gets on a stage, and he begins to speak, and he's not even he speaks like 2 3 year old, but all of a sudden he just begins to speak out of nowhere, and he's on this stage. He wasn't supposed to get up there, right? But it's just my wife and I, we have it recorded somewhere, and he just starts speaking. And I didn't know at the time all these people that spoke there, but it was almost like it was almost like he was attaching himself. His mannerisms changed. He started going, he started looking around the pews, even though they were empty. It was like he was talking to people there. And when he finished, we found out all this information about who had been there and all these people that were there. We were literally walking on what our ancestors came in. But somebody would tell me, that there's no evidence. People don't look at the fact that you can look in the Carolinas and see slave ships on the bottom of the ocean, but we'll tell you that it's not real. Matter of fact, like I said, Kunta Kinte ship, we went to Annapolis, and I had been there before, but didn't realize that I was doing my little side hustle at the time. And so I'm looking to pick up some food and stuff. And I go over there one day, and I realize I actually ended up being really late on the delivery, because I go over there and I go across, and there's a spot, and I never really noticed it before, but it's got this man, and that's all I saw from afar. It's bronze, and it's this man speaking to these children. But I decided something led me over there. I go over there, I walk over there, and sure enough, it's Kunta Kinte who's speaking to generate some children that come behind him about the story of when they came over in ships. This is your story, built right there. But we'll tell each other, no, that wasn't really what happened, and there's no evidence of it. Now, I'm not saying I know the exact number. What I'm saying is that if we're not careful, we'll forget. The goal is not to try and make sure that you know how many people came there. The goal is to make sure that you don't look for the stump. You don't look for the roots. You don't try to feel the people. You go over there to Almena Castle. Go over there to the slave coast in Africa. And when you go there, you feel the people, you can smell them. By the way, not just even spiritually, I'm talking about you can smell the people because they had so many people come through there and they had to wallow through so much waste and stuff. You can smell the people's waste. You can smell the people's bodies. You can smell their sweat. You go up the steps that they would use to be able to bring the women up that the governor was going to rape, or whatever his position was called, was going to rape, and they would bring those women up there or whatever. You can smell the women. You can smell women that weren't allowed to use period rags and therefore were bleeding on the, you can smell it. You can smell and feel the people. They had a cannonball there for women that didn't want to just go with the program. They would take the women out and they would put them out in the sun in the place. They had the men over in one area where the church was above there. So they worshiped over where the men were enslaved underneath, and these squalor, these total conditions of squalor over there. And then you had the women on the other side in total conditions of squalor, and they had this cannonball, and you stand there and and it's heavy. They left it there and stuff like that, and they would attach the woman's leg to a cannonball, and she wouldn't be able to get out of the sun, and so she would die on the concrete as the sun hit the concrete, and she would just cook while the other women watched. So if any other women had second thoughts, they would know, hey, if you don't just get raped like we want you to, you'll end up like her. Right across the way, you walk, not too far. You walk, and that's where the men who either didn't want to listen, were trying to fight, or they themselves didn't want to go through buck breaking, they would just throw them in what we now would call the hole. And when you go in there, you see the writings of people praying to their various Netchers, Guianyamis, all these different stuff, or whatever you see, all these different things on Yom Kippur's, Anansis, Yahweh, all these things that are scribbled up on the wall where they're asking for for their guiding force or their spirit or their God or their whatever you want to call it that they bow down to. They're asking for him to save them or to come or to rescue them or to kill the people that are doing this to their people. And you go there to that place. There's a place there called the point of no return. The point of no return, where they would funnel a whole huge percentage of them came through this one place to leave, whether they were going to the West Indies or Brazil or going, to Europe, or going somehow, some way, making their way up to America. Oh, and by the way, if you want to search the waters over there, you'll find ships over there too that people say don't exist. You say you can feel it like going through North Carolina and stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that. But once again, the goal is to cut you off from yourself to where now you're arguing through the lens of the prism through somebody else, when their whole goal is to make sure that you don't seek out the stump and find the roots for yourself. See, when I went there, I cried because I stood there at the point of no return. I'd heard about it, I'd studied, I researched it, but it's nothing like when you go there and you see all that and you smell all that and you walk around the whole castle, and I even was with people from tribes there who were telling us like, yeah, you do know about this and blah blah, and started giving me more information. And some of them gave me information I didn't want to hear because some of those tribes didn't care about what happened in slavery, even though they themselves would eventually have to fall down to it, but they don't identify. Some tribes identify what we went through, some don't. Some are apologetic for not helping, some don't. So it's actually a very hurtful thing in many different ways. But you go to the point of no return, and it was a spot to where I regained the humanity of generations, because that's where they took the seed from. And I'm one of the trees that they said would never return. You know, I stood at the stump, y'all, at a point of no return, looking at now at a place to where the men were getting ships together to go fishing. But this would have been a place where I would have looked out and I would have seen slave ships ready to go here, there, wherever. And generations of people and tribes of people, thank you for the love, and tribes of people never being able to identify with themselves, never speaking their languages again. Their children being taken places, them having children and them never seeing them again. And I stood there, and I stood in the midst of that. And I stood as I look today, wearing myself and wearing myself and wearing myself and speaking myself. And I wept. Part of the reason I wept once again was because I wasn't supposed to be there. I wasn't supposed to find the stump. Another reason I wept is because I knew I was called to come back here to a place to where some of us are so busy talking about it never happened. You know, like it you know, a place where people are doubt because it's hard to imagine somebody using the curse to their advantage like that. And it's hard to imagine somebody that's unapologetic about it because they're at ease with your scorn. I just stood there. I wasn't supposed to come back. I wasn't supposed to be there. There were generations that we were never supposed to be. I was never supposed to become fully shui again. How you doing? No, no, no. I was never supposed to speak with my own people. I was never supposed to see us do things like, anoint our heads with oil. I was never supposed to see oxen yoked together for myself so that I would comprehend what they really meant by being equally yoked. You know, I was never like according to them, I was never supposed to get that, but see, it wasn't in their hands. And so I'm just saying, like, so when I hear somebody, like, I had to talk to the brother, I think on this TikTok channel, Kofi and the Squirrel 42, when I hear the brother who's in jail now for whatever, they're saying he did, people saying he didn't do what they said he did, whatever. I don't know enough about it to go deep into that. But when I hear the brother I responded to where he's like, oh, well, why don't they know about that story over there? Oh, we're well aware. The diaspora over there is well aware of the story. They're well aware of the story. And other people are well aware of it too. Because when we went through that and went through there, yeah, there were a lot of people that looked like us going through those tours. There were a lot of people that didn't look like us going through those tours. And they would be quick to be able to try and start telling everybody, hey, oh, but didn't they sell each other in slavery and this and that or whatever? Same stuff they say here. They had the audacity to say it to our face. My wife and I had to start going off a little bit to let these people know, no, 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 you're not doing that today. Not around us. If I had earrings, they would have been taken off. You know what I'm saying? And my wife had high heels on, they'd be taken off because we was ready. You're not coming here to try and tell us that we found the stump, we found the evidence. You're not going to tell us that you had nothing to do with this, right? Like it's an emotional, it's something that never leaves you. It was always something that stuck with me. But I had told my wife when we went back we went back home, I was like, hey, we're going here. We're going here, and it's going to be sad. But I've got to. This is something that I've wanted to do since I was 10 years old. I was like, we're going here and I'm going to sit in this and I'm going to see what my people had to endure. Literally, church services, the same thing that happens now, church being put over the people of Yah. Literally, cirque going on the top level as they had slaves that were being killed, raped, dying. When they would die and they were chained together, 4 or 5 people at a time. For people who say, "Oh, there's no way," you think that they have bonds around people. How you gonna get a bond around somebody's neck? First of all, been to jail. Okay, you walk around with your hands in chains, and you walk around with your legs in chains. By the way, that brother, after he finished saying that, he found out it's actually not that difficult to get a grown man to be in chains if you know what you're doing, if it's your business, if it's what you profit off, is that's what your corporation does, right? So you'll find out real quick. And if I can put them around your arms and your legs, and then I just don't feed you, or I beat you, or I put you to a place to where you either got to choose to die or choose to survive. And in order for you to survive, so that others might live, you decide to go ahead and let them put something around your neck. It's not that difficult when you go over there. You see the tools, the instruments of torture, the non-civility. While they told you they were giving you civilization and tearing yours apart, cutting the tree down and leaving the stump, taking the fruit that was there, the seed, planting it somewhere else, and then telling you that don't look for the stump, don't pay attention to that. You said you were arrested for speeding and bound wrist, ankles, yeah, and waist, right? All you got to do is get jumped for somebody to bind your hands. They can put duct tape around your hands. It happens all the time in kidnappings, right? But for whatever reason, people are trying their best to run away from this and say, oh, no, there's no way that could happen. And they say they don't know that story over there. That's nonsense. Everybody knows that story over there, unless you're Ethiopian. And even they were enslaved eventually mentally, which is why they broke down and even killed the bloodline that's supposed to go all the way back to Sheba. Marxism is ultimately what killed Ethiopia. It was chains, it just wasn't physical. See, but once again, if that's not your goal is to find yourself, you're not going to find it. We're arguing ourselves to let us think it's better to be on the plantation than try to leave. Yeah, we're arguing ourselves. We're dealing with drapetomania. Now we're trying to argue whether or not we should run from the plantation and try to see if we can find ourselves outside the plantation. Willie Lynch told you that was what was going to happen. You were going to argue over what plantation you came from. You weren't going to argue over whether you should be free. You were going to argue man against woman, sexism. They said that outright. The N-word female versus the N-word male. And what are we doing today? You were going to argue. You were going to argue over whether you were going to reverse nature, and you were going to raise your women, your girls, to be like white men, and your boys to be like white women, and then blame each other for your situation as if you're the person who created the environment that you're in. I stood there and I wept. First of all, weeping and knowing and saying out loud, and I'm just gonna be honest. This is just me being honest. I don't know how that works. I don't know if the ancestors heard me or not in that situation. I know I'm not supposed to speak like that as a pastor. I'm just gonna keep it 100. I don't know, but I tried to speak to him. I tried to let him. I tried to let him know I came back, that I had been invited back into the tribe, that I was going to honor them for the rest of my life, that their death was not in vain, that I would make sure my son would not forget this spot in life. I talked to him, and I'm not even saying it makes sense. I'm just telling you what I did when I got there. I tried my best to talk to him, and I tried to let him know I came back. And then I sat there, and after that, I prayed, and I praised Jehovah for allowing me to be there, which sounds odd, but I thanked him for that moment. You know what I'm saying? I thanked him for that moment. I don't know if they heard me or not. I'm just being honest. I know I'm not supposed to talk about this stuff and talk about stuff that I ponder over sometimes, but just keep it 100. I tried to talk to him and let him know, like, you don't have to feel sorry about anything. And yes, to a certain extent, let's just go here too. How you doing, Juanetta? To a certain extent, slavery was a choice, but they chose to be in chains so that I would live. So even those that say, well, slavery was a choice, and see, because I went to where they chose to live and never see, or at least so they thought, they would never see their place again, their place of residence, their castles that they built, their culture, their being the scattered Israelites on a map, written by other people who admitted who they were, knowing who they were, looking for those tribes, those people who were the kingdom of Yahweh or the kingdom of Judah, written right on the map, Negro land, written by white folk, colonial construct, social construct, white folk. But I was able to go back there, and I wasn't supposed to make it back. I wasn't supposed to find the stump. I wasn't supposed to get rooted again. And I was just praying and praising Yahweh, and I still do to this day, that I had that experience. So, let's be careful with this slavery argument. You know what I'm saying? Let's be careful with it. Let's be careful with it, because it's easy to talk about this stuff and try to separate yourself. Might I say it like this? Yeah, they chose to live, yeah, having faith, exactly. That we would be able to do the works. Faith without works is dead. They had the faith, but they couldn't put the works together. We have the works, but now we don't have faith in what they had faith in. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, stuff like that, Sister Monica, can be very deep, right? Thank you, big brother. You know what's interesting to me? We're gonna go a little bit over. Forgive me. We're gonna go a little bit over. We're just gonna. I just. I don't know if you want to call this testimony mode, speaking your truth mode, whatever. Um, I'm gonna try and keep. I don't know if I'm gonna connect it all with the comments. I've been trying, but I know I haven't been really paying attention. And I'm gonna speak from vulnerability, so I hope I don't sound angry. But I'm just gonna. I'm gonna peel off I'm gonna peel off the church face, if you will, and I'm gonna just be myself for a second. Forgive me if I am a little rough around the edges when you see who I really am. Um, um, is it not amazing that we have people that tell us we shouldn't care about, stop telling me what my ancestors did because it has nothing to do with me, but you get to live in the consequences of your ancestors. But they say, don't compare me to my ancestors. Don't bring it up. I'm not them. I didn't do that, blah, blah, blah. And we tell them they're wrong because they are living in the consequences of their ancestors, right? We say it's wrong to deny that what your ancestors did still provide consequences. We can't erase that. But then my people have the nerve to to do the same thing. My people have the nerve to say we're going to act like that heinous stuff didn't happen at all. And we're not going to act like those consequences are things that we need to account for, that we didn't do things that brought curses upon ourselves. And we don't want to deal with the consequence. Now, they do something and we say, you got to admit that your ancestors did this and this and this, and you need to make sure that you realize that it's messed things up and you need to get yourselves together. But then when it comes time to look at what we went through and things that we did and choices that we made and things that we had to suffer through ourselves, all of a sudden now we're trying to do the same thing and say that because we're black, we have the right to do the same evil that they're doing. It's irritating. Forgive me. It's irritating. I'm not gonna flake out or anything. Right? But it is irritating. Yeah, I think that it's your own people. Like these are your parents. This is your grandmama and them. Like there were women. I've told y'all the story in my family. I won't list the name or whatever because y'all would never know anyways unless I told you exactly who. But in our family, there was a sister who literally there was a woman. She's elder than that. But I'm gonna just say it's a sister. I'm not gonna tell you who she is in my family. There's a sister whose generations, she's passed on now, but she used to and always had a smile. Always had a smile on her face. Was always praising the Most High. Was part of a praise dance team in her like 70s or 80s. And she was in West Virginia. She was a teacher, and I wouldn't say it was common per se as if it happened every day, but it was not uncommon that she would go and teach children, had to walk miles to be able to get to the school, and on her way to walking to the school, she might get raped. I didn't know that till she passed away. I would have never guessed it. She never hung it on. Maybe couldn't even talk about it. But a generation or a couple generations even, but really a generation before her, you know that women would get raped and they would say, "Why you worried about crying, girl? Just wipe yourself off and keep on going," because it was an everyday part of life. And so this person that was in my family, she went through that on a regular basis because the children needed to be taught. So she taught generations that were taught to never have to go through that. She went through that every day and just wiped herself off and kept on going. But we will look at that and be like, well, we don't have evidence or it wasn't really that bad. No, 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 no. Like you're not going to do that to us. You're not going to do that to our people. That's why we have a problem. It's trauma and we don't deal with the trauma. Like what sense does that make? And then we'll clown the people who are still here. You'll clown the descendants of the people who are still here because they decided not to commit suicide and jump off the boat and to take their children with them and do all those things. You'll clown them. We're in a precarious situation, you know. It's like you get this stuff, you want to cuss people out, you know. I guess that's why tomorrow the Most High is having us talk about forgive the code of forgiveness and trust, right? Because you can forgive people, but see, people act like because we forgave people, we're supposed to outright trust people. And we started trusting the people who we forgave, not realizing that they still aren't telling you the truth. We got to come to Yah. It's got to be truth and nothing else at this point. We're not going. I believe the word. We shall come out, but we're not going to come out ignoring what happened. And it's easiest to keep ignoring what happened because we don't have to hold ourselves accountable, or we don't have to look at what people did, or we don't have to say, hey, this is where we are. See, it's easy to act like we're not slaves, but you still whipping your children. Some of y'all whipped your children today. You didn't spank them, you didn't even beat them, you whipped them. And then you're sitting up there talking about, but you've graduated from this. I'm sorry, if the shoe fits, wear it. If it don't, take it off. Right? This might not be for you, but I told you, I'm sorry. I'm not going. I'm gonna keep myself in control, but I'm just saying, like, this is it gets difficult. We're still out here doing stuff that they did because they were afraid that the slave master would take your son or your daughter if they showed any kind of sign of being intelligent. So the slave master would be like, "Oh wow, little Johnny's doing really well," and you say, "Oh no, sir. Johnny dumb. He's stupid. If you only knew all the stuff I had to do to get Johnny." She did that because she had to make Johnny look bad. Remember, you had to reverse your nature. You had to teach boys to be like girls. You had to teach girls to be like boys, and the girls became strong and independent, eating out of the master's hand, while the boy was up there just to do work, just to breed. And then he went away and made sure that he stayed away from everything, because if he was ever intelligent, he either would get killed because he was a threat, or he would get sold because he was valuable. And so you didn't want your family split up. So you would tell little boy, little Johnny, he's dumb, he was slow. Nowadays, it's turned into it's little Raekwon, and little Johnny's back to being a white boy name, and little Johnny's up there, and Raekwon's up there, and little Johnny's mother says to Raekwon's mother, "Hey man, I'm sorry, Raekwon's mother says to little Johnny's mother, she said, 'Man, your child's really smart, getting an award for this and that.'" And she says, "Oh, thank you." That's all she says, because it should be that way. That's all she says is, "Thank you very much. I appreciate that." And then she looks up and she goes back and says, "Wait a minute. Well, Raekwon, he's even doing better than Johnny. He's getting all these awards, and he's going to be the valedictorian, and he's going to go to this college, and he's already got this many offers for work while he's in college and stuff. You must be really proud." And Raekwon's mother still does the same thing that the mother did, that she doesn't even realize that her mother's mother was doing on the plantation. And she turns to the white lady and says, "Hey, yeah, if you only knew what I had to go through, Raekwon. Raekwon really, I mean, he doing well, but if you really knew all the stuff I was doing, and as smart as he is, he be acting stupid and slow sometimes." And the white mother's just looking at you like, because she doesn't even recognize herself. What's just played out there is that she has no problem with her son being intelligent. That's what he's supposed to be. But see, it's still something that we hold on to that says we're not intelligent. So we still sit there and we look at these people. We even clown our own men. We can't wait to tell you why you shouldn't listen to Malcolm X or Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. or anybody. We can't wait for them to fall. We can't wait to be the fall of our own people. It was black people. It was the people that were with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. that put him in position to even be shot. It was Malcolm X's own people who worked with the CIA to ensure that he got shot. And the CIA didn't even trust him. The CIA had bullet holes, or had holes on the top floor. They had rented the floor above the night before, had holes in the floor, and all the angles where Malcolm X was shot, he was shot from the angle where he was shot down upon, which means that they gave the people pretty much probably gave them blanks, because they didn't trust the black Muslims to actually get the job done. The black Muslims, and I'm not saying all black Muslims like this, but just hear what I'm saying at the time, got the black Muslims to be so much against each other, against their own people who they're supposed to live for and die for, that they were willing to kill one of their own that taught them some of the things that they were doing. Look up. And look, the honorable I'm sorry, the honorable minister, Louis Farrakhan. He has a lot of great stuff to say. But look up some of the things when Farrakhan is irritated when people are starting talking about Malcolm X, and he literally talks about if even if so what even if we did. This is what he said. He said, so what even if we did kill him, and that's the person that taught him. That was his tutor. That was his mentor. I know we're not supposed to use that word, but that was his person that taught him one on one. And yet he said, so what if we killed him? Even if we did, he said he was a traitor and he was ours to deal with. That's what he said. I'm not telling you what I think about it. I'm telling you what he said. And so now, even if Farrakhan has some great things to say, I can't really trust you. I forgive you, but I can't trust you because not all skin folk is kinfolk. And even somebody who's supposed to have all these great ideas for us, I can't really play. I can't. You played yourself and you played us. I know that gets some brothers mad at me, some sisters mad at me because Farrakhan, to them, they say that he's Jesus Christ. As wild as what all the stuff that goes into that is. Literally, if you didn't know, Farrakhan's supposed to be the Messiah. He teaches that. That's part of the curriculum, if you will. We got a ways to go, Yashna. Guam, we got to rise up. Just because the tree's been planted in America doesn't mean that the seed is indigenous to this environment. We're in an environment where this is wild, where this is crazy. We can't play around with it anymore, y'all. If you notice the teaching, especially when we started getting to the end of last year, it's increased and it's getting stronger and stuff because we can't mess around with this anymore. I'm on the phone all day, every day now. I'm talking to people. We got people calling left and right. We're trying to make sure we get these meetups going and all this stuff. We can't mess around with this anymore. This stuff has to happen. I'm not even really looking at the comments right now. I already said, in all honesty, I don't even. Right now, I'm just in a different place. I'm trying to get back on track so we can just take our lead. But it's just I don't know what else to say. I love y'all. I don't know. I had a moment. I get myself back in order. I'll be better tomorrow. I think we did what we need to do in the beginning of this though. But it's now or never. And realize once again, I'm not coming here to try and change the United States. The United States works the way it's supposed to work. It's not my responsibility to make the United States better. The United States is better according to their standard. It's going to keep getting better and more efficient at doing what it does to our people. And as much as I wish everybody would change their heart, not everybody has forget the heart for this. Not everybody has the stomach for this. So I just want to say I love y'all. I don't even know what else to say. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Thanks for listening in. We love you guys. Um, I'm gonna need to get myself together. uh, Usually I would go to sleep soon after this. I'm gonna need to spend some time getting myself together, but just pray for us. That's why I be putting stuff out. Like even when we had in the rising session, when we had our little stuff where we play the music and stuff out. If you notice, I put a thing, pray for your pastors, put the percentage of stuff. Uh Having a pastor's heart sometimes ain't no joke. The joke of the labat kohelet. It is a this stuff is real, y'all. I just want to see us do. This ain't even profound at this moment. I just want to see us do better. I just want to see us do better, y'all. I just and that's the sad part for me because it's not Yahweh's will, and I'm in agreement with His will. So it's not my will, but my will is not as important. It's not Yahweh's will that any of us will perish. It's not His will that any would perish, but it all would have everlasting life. And yet, some people are going to choose no matter what to keep perishing. and perishing for a lack of knowledge because we have rejected the knowledge, and we're gonna have to watch generations have to keep dealing with this stuff. And that's the part that really hurts me. And some of us decided to live in Deuteronomy 28, 1 through 14. Some of us can know Deuteronomy 28, 15 through 68 is still there. Others can tell us that they know it by their actions, and we can still keep just doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. It's not fair to these babies. It's not fair to these people's hearts. It's not fair to these mamas that are going to cry over their sons, as we talked about last night when the Honorable Maya was on with this. But I don't know. I love y'all though. I hope y'all, even when I get irritated, or even when I say stuff, or even when I say stuff that might like challenge you, I want you to know it comes from like a place of if I just want to see y'all, I want to see us do better, you know? I've said this before, like I don't talk to people like this a lot because a lot of people can't handle it because of humility and also them thinking that I think I'm better than them. I When I say stuff like that, I was talking with somebody about this today, right before the live. Matter of fact, they know who they are, about how when you deal with Yah's children, you have to remember you're dealing with Yah's children. And like even spiritually, sometimes like we have to recognize that people are children. There's some of you sisters that are older than me, and you guys say stuff to me, and y'all don't even realize because I've lost my mother, 20 years ago now. But I lost my mother, and I still want the love and the care of a mother. And sometimes you sisters will say stuff and you don't even realize like I needed that. You know what I'm saying? I needed an elder sister in that moment. I needed a mother figure in that moment to speak something to me that made me go like to show me that give me that little boy spark, if you will. And it's like all of us are children. I think some of us think that I'm coming hard at you or whatever, but if you look at me as a Helet or a pastor or a rabbi or something, sometimes I have to be in a spiritual father position sometimes. And I don't mean any harm in some of the stuff. That's why I try to say all the time, like, please don't get offended. Or I try to say, if the shoe fits, wear it. And if it doesn't, take it off. Because I really believe that. Like, but sometimes we're very childlike in a lot of different ways. And we're children that have never learned how to deal with trauma. And it's nothing like having a 25-year-old male that when he gets angry turned into a 2-year-old boy. You know what I'm saying? And that's why it gets difficult sometimes, is because we've been taught that it's okay to stay childlike in things that we should be we're still drinking milk in places we should be eating meat. And that's why this year I said it, and as soon as I said it, I started going through stuff first. That's the way it always works. Last year when we said we're gonna look beyond what we see, we started talking about press and strain immediately. If y'all remember, pretty much as soon as we left, the day after we left, even I think I started like dealing with headaches and being sick and having signal issues and having car issues and all this stuff that never even, like I get sick, of course, like anybody else does from time to time. But it's like it hits you first, and then after you see it, then you finish seeing it, and you look upon the people and you realize like they're dealing with like the same stuff, sometimes to a greater magnitude. Like I've said before, when they take the lamb and they put the lamb, a lot of people don't know that the shepherd sometimes would give hairline fractures to the sheep, and would basically break the leg. And so the sheep couldn't walk, but he would take the sheep's legs and arms and would bind them together. He would basically, in essence, like shackles, and would put the lamb over his neck. When you see that, that's why the lamb is over the neck. And the sheep, the reason they would do that to the sheep is because the sheep was always trying to get out of something. You know, there was always trying to get out of stuff. Like you can hear the puppy trying to get out and get me to walk her because she don't care about how I feel, but that's okay. She does, but she don't recognize it. But I'm just spinning that out there, right? Take it how you will. Hopefully you're seeing what I'm saying in the spirit. But he would put the sheep over his head, and he would make sure that the sheep saw the commands. So when he put out the staff for direction, the sheep said, "Oh, that's why he put the staff out. That's why I need to listen. Oh wow, there's a bear coming. There's a wolf coming. There's a lion coming. Okay, cool. Or that's why he was telling us to go that way. All right. So when you put that staff that way, and all the sheep they listen, that's why you were trying to get me to listen. It's better that I had a broken, leg than I got eight." And then it would see the route of correction, direct, hey, let me make sure that I put this right out. Maybe to make sure I discipline you. And that's all that it is, you know. So this year in pressing and straining, you know, if there's something, hopefully you guys have seen that everything I do is in love anyways, and hopefully you guys see I really don't micromanage. We try to give as much freedom and stuff like that, but it's about trying to get you. If there's anything that's done, that's why I try to preach on the word of Yah. So if you get hurt feelings, you're not really mad at me, you're mad at the Most High. But if there's anything that's done, um, if there's anything that's done that hurts your feelings, know that it's not because I hate you. Know that it's not anything that anybody, any of the ministerial staff is saying because they hate you. No, even ministerial staff, I love y'all too, you know, but if it's something that you feel like I'm getting on you a little bit about, no, it's not because of a place of hate. It's because I want to see y'all rise. I told you, you need to be better than me. If I'm who I say I am, there's some things that y'all are gonna start doing that's gonna make me look like nothing. You're gonna leave me in the dust on some things. Now, please know, like I tell my son all the time, I tell him all the time it's gonna be, I said this last night when he was on with us. I told him, please know you're gonna be a better man than I am, but I'm gonna be studying and reading and doing stuff. So if you're gonna become better than me, you're gonna have to work hard, right? But you got a head start, right? But at a certain point, you should surpass the what do they say? The the disciple will surpass the shifu or the master, the teacher. And I just want us I just I don't even know if I'm making sense at this point. I just want us to be great. And I get so excited when you guys tell me that you understand the word, or you know Yahweh's name now, or you know, when you say that you treat your wife different and you treat your husband different, and you would have lost your marriage but you're getting this together, or that you would have cussed somebody out but you didn't, and everybody thinks that that is something that's being small, but I celebrate with you. I love to see those things. I love to exactly greater works that you'll do. I love to see those things. And I don't even know how we got here, y'all. How'd I get here? But, you know, I just, you know, this is, I guess maybe this is intimate time. I don't know. But time to just be family. But I just wanted to say that, you know, sometimes you can go through all this other stuff, whatever. But I just want you to know I love you. So even in pressing and strain, and I know this year for some of us coming together is going to be press and strain and getting with like-minded people and actually having to be held accountable and trying to be on time, and yeah, stuff that we'll do for somebody else, but we're going to do for one another. But it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it when, you know, every once in a while you'll be able to meet up with 10, 20 families in your area, and y'all will be able to hold hands and pray, and your children will be able to feel safe, and your children will play with other children who love the most high like they do, and they don't have to feel ashamed, and they don't think it's cool. They don't have to think it's cool to act crazy, but they can be around people who think it's cool to take care of one another. I know, like when Solomon travels and he meets these children and they play, and he doesn't have to worry about it. They cursing and doing this and all this stuff. You know, that's what we're trying to build here. And you know, once again, they took that away from us, and they told you that there was no roots, but we found the stump. We came on to something. We're doing something correct. We're doing something righteous, and it's like it's almost like an adrenaline rush when I see this happening. And so I just want to say I love y'all. You know, you never know. As much as I told y'all, my goal is to try and live to 150 or 150, but you never know. And so even if I were to never talk to you all again, just know I love you. Um, I'm not saying I'm feeling any kind of way or anything. I plan on being here to, you know, or Kofi _ 43 and here on YouTube tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern New York time. I'm just saying, like, sometimes we don't express this. Sometimes we're so deep into the etymology that we forget that sometimes you just need to say, you know, that we love each other, you know. Oh, hey, Solomon, how you doing? Over there. I hope you're having fun or coming back from your fun. I don't know what the hours are over there, you know. But I just want to say, you know, sometimes we have to show love one to another. And so, you know, I love the most high. I love and I honor and I cherish my wife. I love and I honor and cherish you, Solomon, as well. And we have love for you guys as well. And this stuff we're talking about, it's not because you know, please Ma'am, please, sir. We've had some people that think that I'm saying this stuff to hurt you or hurt your feelings to say you're not great. I just really want to see you be the best you ever have. Salvation literally is when you're going to be salvaged. You're going to be better than what you used to be or better than anything you thought you could be. You thought that that was great. You thought what you did 10 years ago was great and you can't meet that. I promise you, what you're about to go into is going to be something that's better than anything you've ever done before. Don't put your hands to the plow and keep looking back and saying, "Oh, I'm not this," or "The world says this about me." Don't turn back and worry, don't become a pillar of salt, right? You look back. See, I don't think a lot of us don't even get that. When she Oh, thank you, son. I appreciate you. Don't be like Lot's wife where she looked back. When she looked back, when she turned to a pillar of salt, salt preserves. She was trying to preserve something that was evil anyways, but she identified with it. You know, she tried to look back and preserve something that was evil anyways. And so I know this is I've told y'all this before. This is new territory for a lot of us because it's territory we've never been in. Even this language that we're bringing back, people say that this is a dead language. We're going back to speaking the language that we haven't spoken on a regular basis like this for years and years and years and years. Amen, Sister Monica. And we're glad that you did. Right. So just know that I appreciate you. If you guys get messages from me saying, "Hey, I'm trying to contact you and stuff," this is why I'm trying to contact you, not because of anything crazy or wild or anything. Reason why I'm trying to contact y'all is because I want to just see you become your best self. That's all I have. If I go any further, I don't know. I'll be up all night. So, um, thank you for being on. We give honor to Yahweh. We give honor to him. For my wife, the Honorable Maya, who lives a life that's able to be honored. Uh, I honor you, Solomon, as well. Thank you for your words of encouragement, sir. That means a lot to me. I love you, son. Um, Wadak Allah Cham Yahava. Shabbat Shalom. Be at peace. Take care of yourselves. Know that we care about you. And take care of yourselves. I appreciate you guys. Take care of each other. Honor the Most High. Talk to one another. You'd be surprised how many of y'all are just waiting on a kind word from one of you guys. So be the change that you want to see, all that stuff, right? But thank you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and go downstairs. As you can tell, I need to take care of the puppy real quick and uh try and get some sleep. I'll see you guys in the rising. Don't forget your affirmations: Romans 8:1, Romans 8:11, Romans 8:18, Romans 8:19, Romans 8:28. That bonus as well, Romans 8:37. And it's gonna be better. It's gonna be all right. I appreciate y'all. So we'll talk about forgiveness and trust tomorrow. I appreciate you. My wife will be joining me on the podcast tomorrow. Thank you guys so much. Um, Take care. Um, we appreciate you. Thank you guys. Even a lot of you actually gave words of encouragement and stuff today. Y'all can probably tell I needed it. My family appreciates it as well. So take care of yourselves. Be at peace. Um, what we did was a little heavy tonight. It was very heavy. Uh, so if you get a chance, take some time out. We call them stress tools. Take some time out, watch something that you like to that makes you laugh. Um, Kiss your babies or something. Let them know that you love them. Uh, Even if they look at you crazy because you hugging up on them in tears. Look at yourself in the mirror and affirm yourself. Honor your wives, honor your husbands, and take care. Appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all tomorrow. And remember, as always, y'all stuff that you're loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shabbat Shalom, family. Take care. Thank you for all the comments. If I didn't respond to them, I apologize. I did see them at a glance, and I thank you for all the well wishes and stuff. We'll see you tomorrow. And no SOC meeting after, just tomorrow's live Shabbat Shalom service on the Kofi 40 podcast. And then we'll catch you guys on Sunday. All right. Take care. Peace.